Hi guys, welcome back to My Steps to Sobriety, my show on YouTube and as a podcast with me, your host, Stefan Neff. Today is another day for a fantastic interview. I've got Anna Oliveira with me. Anna is a nurse consultant for medical cannabis, and I thought it is so important that I actually bring her on. Here in New Zealand, we had yesterday the results from a referendum being publicized, and it was a very close call. Should our cannabis here being legalized, yes or no? It was a no vote with just a little bit more than 50%, 54% versus 46%, I believe it was. So there are still some votes being counted, but I think it will probably remain like that. And a lot of people are really, really glad about that. And a lot of people are really, really sad about that. And I have experienced the cannabis story, really on all sides. Anna and I share a passion for chronic pain management. And we're going to hear shortly about your story, Anna. But in a nutshell, Anna has seen the suffering that is out there just as much as I have, and has seen how good cannabis products can be for certain pain conditions. And therefore, she has become an expert in that. And so we're going to hear about the prescribing and all the good sides of it. But of course, I'm also an addict, an alcoholic. So I know the dark side of it. And we know the dark side is pretty much here in New Zealand because of the prevalence of addiction and the flow-on effects on society here. So we're going to explore today both of these things. And I'm so grateful to have Anna Oliveira with me today. Anna, welcome to my show.
It's great to be here.
Anna, we both started in the same place. Blood, gore, theater, just where the fun happens. You were a theater nurse, weren't you, when you started off?
Yes, loved it. That was like the best job ever.
Excellent. And it's cool because we are working as really close-knit teams in theaters. So there's the anesthetist, then here's his technician, and then you've got the surgeons and the nurses, and it's good fun. I mean, that's what I do for a living. That's what you have been doing for a living. It's just gorgeous. So why the hell did you leave if you had so much fun in theater? What was your journey?
I like to mix things up and do something different every now and then. And I loved working with the anesthesia group that I was with, a really great group of guys. And so I decided to move to the acute pain service where we would educate and do preoperative nerve blocks to help people treat their pain with numbing rather than with opioids or a blend. Sometimes we would do blocks afterwards, and I would get to round with them or round without them and report back and make adjustments to medications. And so that was a lot of fun. I did that for about 5-6 years as well. So I really enjoyed helping manage people's pain and helping them go home and feel more confident in managing their pain after surgery.
Keeping in mind that is the biggest fear of people when they undergo surgery. It is the pain and it is nausea. Those two things are the biggest. Oh no, if we can just prevent that, whatever else happens, I can live with that. And that's exactly why I love anesthesia. I hate these two things. And that's where the acute pain management is such a powerful thing. And I, like you, I love to do the nerve blocks. I work with shoulder surgeons and spine surgeons, and certainly in the shoulder area, there's virtually everyone is receiving local anesthetic in a clever way. So now we will do all these wonderful things, and that's the acute pain setting, which is lovely. But acute pain is sort of often a means to an end. You've broken your bone, now you get it mended. And it will bloody well hurt you, yes, but in a week's time, life will look very different, and you're getting on riding into the sunset. The problem, of course, is there are sometimes when that does not happen. And that is where then pain doesn't go away. and
Mm-hmm.
what the hell is happening then? And you got drawn into that field, didn't you?
I did. I would see people who already had pre-existing chronic pain before surgery, who now had a whole different agony with surgery and trying to catch up and manage their pain. And I started wanting to do something different, something more to help people with their chronic pain. So I became an empty nester when my youngest went away to college, and I decided I don't know what to do with my evening time. So I went to massage therapy school for every night
Excellent.
for a year and became a massage therapist, which is so gratifying when you have somebody coming in with a crick in their neck or a low back pain, and you can give them a massage and give them some at least temporary relief. It just felt much more hands-on gratifying. That's what I wanted to do. And then I started doing yoga myself because I had chronic neck and shoulder pain and headaches, sometimes 5 days in a row. I'd have one day off and then another 5 days. So I noticed that yoga helped me feel better, and I became a yoga teacher so that I can help my clients off the massage table into a yoga class and continue on with managing their pain in different ways. So also realize that sometimes people need a little bit more. I'm studying herbs, and one of the herbs I came across was cannabis. So I started learning about that, and I found that for the people that I've been able to recommend the cannabis for, they have had some really good benefits.
Oh, which is brilliant. And you guys might find it's strange that I say, "Oh, that's brilliant," when I talk about the drug of abuse. And that's what this whole session is about. It is a very double-edged sword, but for the right people, it can be a lifesaver. But unfortunately, the way it is used recreationally is not necessarily, not the same can be said about that. First of all, let's go one step back, Anna, because you and I know the figures. The people who are listening to that probably have bugger idea about the chronic pain. So let's give you the figures. We think that on average, 1 in 4 people do suffer from chronic pain bad enough that it affects their quality of life. So that's 1 in 4. And if you think that at least each of one of them has got one significant other that is suffering with them, then that affects actually half of the population. That's a huge amount of people. Goodness. So if you then say that's chronic pain, that includes the osteoarthritis, the I really need a hip joint, but I don't qualify for it, or I don't have the money for it kind of stuff. If you then look at specific subsets of chronic pain where nerves are damaged or appear to be dysfunctioning, we call it neuropathic pain. Well, that's at least 1 in 100 people. And that's 1% of the population. Now, these are a hell of a lot of people out there. And we are not talking, oh, I've got a bit of a pain and let's go shopping. We're talking pain that is so bad that it completely stops you in your tracks. Give you an example. Let's say you hit your funny bone and you think, ooh, that's not bad. You're not really reaching down there, do you? You reach up here and think, ooh, my hand tingles. That's not nice. Nothing has happened with your hand. What has happened is that you've squished a nerve here, and that nerve is irritated. So you know these pins and needles, and it's not feeling nice. Imagine that for the rest of your life. And imagine that constant, day in, day out. During the day, it's sort of okay because you can distract yourself. And now it's nighttime, you want to lie down, you want to sleep, and there is this tingling, a massive, nasty tingling that occupies every fiber in your body. Now, that's only the tingling, the paresthesias, dysesthesias, as we call them. Now, add to that pain, nasty, severe, burning pain. Imagine your hand being in fire all the time and you can't take it out. Imagine your hand being in a freezer or in a vise, your ankle being crushed in a vise all the time. Imagine now cramps in that area. because the muscles, when the nerves are pissed off, the muscles go along with it and they play their own game.
Mm-hmm.
So now you have got your pain in your lower back and suddenly the whole thing goes into spasms and you want to scream and you want to do things, but you can't. Imagine now that that has happened, let's say a year ago, in response to a road traffic accident that pretty much smashed you up. And now it's a year down the line. You haven't worked since then. Your relationship is on the rocks. You are not particularly nice to people around you because you haven't slept for about a year. And imagine this kind of scenario. Imagine yourself in this situation. That is what we're talking about. Severe chronic neuropathic pain that turns life into living hell for some of our patients. I have been running a pain clinic in the past, so I saw hundreds and hundreds, actually in excess of 2,000 patients like that. And so I know exactly how these patients felt. And Anna has experienced the same thing again. So that is what we're talking about. This is the baseline from which we are working. So when we say cannabis for chronic pain, we're not talking about you stubbing your toe. We're not talking about an acute back injury because you were at the gym and you lifted some stupid weights and you now sprained your back muscle. No, that's not what we're talking about. Okay, so different baseline. And I wanted to make that crystal clear to the viewers and listeners out there. This is what we're talking about. Cool. But let's come back to your story, Anna. Your story is intriguing because your story actually evolves, and it evolves with you. Here you were a theater nurse, very hands-on, doing things. And then you were again doing things. You were the knight in shining armor, actually, the Viking shield maiden with the local anesthetic, running in there, going there, yeah, that's it, pain gone. So you were doing this really very gratifying, very heroic work. Mm-hmm. And then you suddenly became this kind of wider reaching thing. So instead of a crystal clear laser guided focus towards the nerve, you suddenly realized that pain is a bit beyond the one single nerve, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, you have to treat the whole body. It affects your mind, it affects your mood, it affects how you sleep and relate to, and your optimism for waking up and having a good day the next day. So when you're dragged down like that, you need to find alternative things besides just chemistry and drugs. You need to find other ways to cope with the pain too. So that's why I'm starting to look at different alternatives, and hopefully that can help my clients a little bit more than
exactly
just taking pain pills.
Oh, shit, yeah. And indeed, you're saying at one hand there's the cannabis, there is the pills. We've talked about the injections. So these are sort of only 3 modalities so far. Guys, if you're in chronic pain out there, just think of the whole spread of things that is there. If you imagine a spread from all the way over there to all the way over there, on that side, you have got the sort of the least invasive things, the physiotherapy, the maybe TENS machines, the external bolsters or creams, etc., non-invasive there. And over there, you have got spinal cord stimulators and weird things that we implant into patients, the nerve blocks, etc. Somewhere here, you've got the tablets, fair call. But what about all the other things over here? The beautiful psychology, the CBT, those kind of other modalities that are out there where we help you to learn different coping mechanisms, to deal with pain in a different way, to use techniques that your brain has to change the pain, to change your state. I mean, you're referring to it with the yoga, just so powerful. Here you are, you're learning how to relax your your shoulders, you're learning different energy flows, and suddenly the headache is gone. So I think whilst we're today talking about cannabis, I wanted to put that into the perspective of this whole range of beautiful pain management modalities. If people are focused, oh, I need that tablet, or I need to go now every week for acupuncture for the next 40 years, it's probably unlikely that you're on the right track, friends. So there's so much out there that we can work with, and a good pain management clinic will use all these modalities and will use all this teaching and will work together with you to help you to address the pain, to address some of the other issues that are arising from the pain. They will try to give you function back, even if the pain is maybe still there, because to get rid of pain is a tall order. So in my pain clinic, we were celebrating when you got your pain down by 30%. That was a good day. But equally, there were patients whose pain was 7 out of 10. But they were, when we started, they were lying on the couch and could not move. And now their pain is still 7 out of 10, but they live a full life and actually going to work for a work that they love. That's a big change, despite the fact that the pain is still there. So these are all such important bits that I wanted to talk about. So when we are now going into the cannabis side of things, then that is now within that framework that you understand which patients we're talking about, and as well as part of the framework with which chronic pain should be managed in 2020 as a multimodal, as a sensible approach kind of a thing, not just of an ad hoc, oh, well, try that. Oh, here you're back. Oh, didn't it work? Oh well, and try that. That's not how chronic pain management is, okay? It is basically working from very simple to the very advanced and ticking things off and educating you and helping you along the lines. If you don't get that care, then look around and try to sort yourself out. Work with your GP, your family physician, and they can hopefully get you into the right care, support you in the way that you deserve to give you the best chance of a good outcome. So, framework established, boom. Now we can talk, Mariana. So I'm intrigued because, as I said, from a New Zealand perspective, we have got cannabis, medical cannabis here. It comes in the form of a nasal spray or it comes in the form of tablets. It's expensive as hell, and very few people actually fund it here. So therefore, since everything in New Zealand grows like weeds, including wheat, there are many, many, many places where there are many tomato plants and not a single tomato. Honestly, you walk through tomato plants, but not a single tomato. Yeah, five leafy kind of things.
Right.
So this is the story here. So cannabis is very prevalent. First of all, Anna, in which part of the United States do you live? Where are you?
I'm in Michigan.
Michigan is, tell us, is that a state where, is it warm, cold, for people who are not?
Cold, long winters, but it is still growable. And we are legally allowed to grow 12 plants per household.
Wow.
So if people want to grow their own medicine, they can.
Wow.
It's just a very short growing season. So you can also grow indoors. And there's a lot of stores that offer all of the stuff that you need to grow indoors. So there's a way around it.
I'm laughing because West Auckland here, our biggest city, and the west of Auckland is quite alternative. And there were often people joking that it is it's a very garden-friendly place because you can find so many hydroponic shops there to help you grow tomatoes, etc. Yeah, he's right. So no, that's cool. So hydroponics and things like that can help. So Michigan, 12 plants. When did that come into action?
I think
Ballpark.
last year or the year before.
Right.
Yeah. It's about 2 years that it's recreational legal. It had a medical program and now it's legal recreationally as well. So it brings in a lot of tourists from neighboring states too, who don't have the recreational program.
Funny that is, isn't it? Yeah. Well, that was the same for a long time with Germany and the Netherlands, where you just go over the border and hello, there is your coffee shop. And the coffee shop doesn't roast coffee. It is more herbal. It's just Mariana. So what is the social makeup of Michigan? Is that rather a richer state, or is that more a lower socioeconomic state?
It used to be huge for automotive in Detroit area, so the industry is still surviving. I mean, it's had its ups and downs, but it's a lot of diversity in Michigan. There's technology. There's a lot of good universities here, a lot of agriculture, and then, of course, the automotive and other manufacturing. So it's pretty diverse, I would say.
Cool. The reason I'm asking, of course, is the prevalence of addiction that often, addiction is a disease that affects every strata of society. But of course, the lower strata, the sort of poorer areas, it is maybe a bit more prevalent. The use of alcohol and harder drugs is probably a little bit more likely there. What was the story of recreational cannabis use prior to the legalization?
It's probably quite prevalent, and people were quite skilled at growing and indoor growing and using their own medicine and creating their own barter system, I'm sure. So it is nice that it's more out in the open, that people can actually share plants openly and exchange information. And I think a lot of people who are using it so-called recreationally, it's actually kind of therapeutic for them, because a lot of people are using it because of anxiety, PTSD. They're self-medicating. So they're finding ways on their own. They're finding that need, that urge to medicate and to use cannabis. And I know a lot of people that have been doing that for years, and they're functional, great people, and they're just finding ways to self-medicate without having to go and get a prescription. And, prescription medications are expensive. Cannabis in a dispensary is expensive. So if you can find a way to grow your own medicine, I understand where they're coming from.
Sure. How much is cannabis? If I wanted to buy something in the dispensary?
It's pretty pricey. There's high state tax on it. If you have a medical card, you do get a discount on some of the state tax. I've only been in two dispensaries in Michigan just to see what it looks like. And the one was a very, meat and potatoes. Here's the medical side. Here's the recreational side. They divide them. You have to have the card to get into the medical side. And I think the prices are a little different, and what's allowed is a little different. And then I went into a really posh one where you walk in and there are multiple staff members around, people dressed nicely with their tablets there, and they are your personal shoppers. You do not go in unescorted. They are there with you, and everything's behind glass cases and beautifully displayed little cut up brownies. And it was kind of surreal thinking these people are treating it like a high class shopping experience. And then, 1 or 2 states over, people are in jail for doing the same transaction that I'm doing right now, checking things out, doing a little purchase, seeing what's out there. And things are pretty pricey. So for people who rely on using cannabis to treat their medical symptoms, it can be kind of hard unless you can grow your own medicine. If you can find that right plant varietal and grow your own, because it's pricey. So, and of course, your insurance company's not going to cover that. They cover certain prescription medications, but certainly don't cover medical cannabis prices. So that's kind of hard for people who need it.
Exactly. Last time I looked, the costs were sort of $500, $600 New Zealand dollars per month here in New Zealand for the
Yeah.
nasal spray. And you say, I mean, ACC, our Accident Compensation Corporation, was for a long time absolutely clear they will never ever fund that. I don't think I don't know if things have changed. I cannot speak with authority on that, but the same here. I mean, which insurer wants to say, yeah, here you go. $600 is a lot of money for an insurance company if it is ongoing for the rest of someone's life, in addition to all the other care, etc., that obviously such a patient might require. But it is what it is. It is, we know, we as in Anna and I have met patients where we have to say, wow, okay, unbelievable results. I remember a lady who had an incomplete spinal cord injury, and she was in not a good state. And we tried everything that is on the market here available to us, and with mixed results, sometimes a bit better, but then side effects of drugs were there, etc. And she touched upon the cannabis, but in her own right, she wasn't actually keen on it. So we said, well, you know, okay, it is what it is. And then Christmas rolled around, and she went to a work do with her husband, and the joint was going around. So she had a joint. Then they went to bed. In the morning, she woke up and thought, oh no, I've infarcted the rest of my spinal cord, because there was no pain.
Wow.
And she thought, what the hell? And gingerly moved her legs. And she could move her legs just as bad or as good as it was before, but the pain was gone. So she gingerly got up and thought, what is going on? And it was up until 2:00 the next afternoon after the party that the pain started coming back. And needless to say, this lady never looked back. Another story, when I was working in Australia, and there was a huge waiting list to see us in the public system. So one day in the clinic, this lady came in, and on paper, she looked horrendous. Severe rheumatoid arthritis, so a destructive disease that affects your joints. And oh my God, she looked on paper, what I read about her, I thought, oh my God, what will I do here? Door opens, this lady comes in, beautifully made up. She was in her mid-60s, late 60s, walks in, very clearly rheumatoid arthritis, but a smile on her face, sitting down. And I thought, what's going on here? Because on paper, sorry, your referral is very different than what you are. Well, turns out her nephew had introduced her to cannabis. And here she was, smoking 4 joints a day. And she just came in order to show me the respect, because she had been waiting so long to see me in a pain clinic. And she actually said, look, I'm really grateful, and I feel a bit like a fraud, but you know what? I mean, when I asked my doctor to refer you to me to the pain clinic, I was unable to get out of the bed. And today I'm here. Well, I've made this appointment with you, but afterwards I go with my girlfriends to town, and we're going to have a coffee, and I'm going to have a lovely day.
That's wonderful.
I just stood there and thought, none of my drugs could have achieved that.
That's wonderful.
Exactly. So these are the stories that are out there. Yeah, I have seen them with my own eyes. I've seen them, and I've seen them with the eyes of a pain physician who was at the time probably rather critical of cannabis and rather critical of the recreational use of it. But here I was, wow. So therefore, it needs to be said, there is certainly a role for certain conditions out there. And that is what I wanted to explore with you, because you guys have got now a complete framework within which you as a nurse practitioner, are practicing. Can you teach me a bit about that?
About having the availability to recommend to people now. It's that the stigma is going.
all that, all that.
When you consider that, I mean, opioids, there are receptors in your brainstem that if you take too much, you're not going to wake up. It's going to suppress your breathing. And that's how people die of overdoses with the opioids. Whereas in cannabis, there are no receptors in the brainstem. So you're not going to die from taking too much. If you consume too much cannabis, you're going to have some paranoia, nausea, that kind of thing. But the threshold for safety is much greater for cannabis for treating the pain. And when you see it end of life care and people who are, just gorked out on all of their morphine and can't even enjoy their last days with their family versus giving them some cannabis, they're more alert, more comfortable, calm, more peaceful state of mind, and they're able to enjoy their last days. So I think it's wonderful that we're allowed to use this tool now openly and that more people are learning the fact that we have within our bodies our own cannabinoids that our body makes. We have our own entire endocannabinoid system that this plant perfectly matches how our body works, and that a lot of illnesses can be linked towards an underfunctioning, underperforming internal cannabis system, and that we need to supplement and add, whether it's the medical marijuana with the THC, which is the cannabinoid that can affect your mind, or the other components of it. There's hundreds of cannabinoids, and the ones that are most common are the THC and the CBD. But both of those have been shown to be effective in treating a variety of ailments, and it's just the fact that it's been considered an illegal Schedule 1 medication in the US for so long. I don't know how your scheduling works in New Zealand, but Schedule 1 is considered a dangerous medication, highly addictive with no therapeutic benefits. And yet it is therapeutic and it needs to be descheduled. And that's the push now, is to get the federal government to deschedule it or legalize it. In several states, every state has its own rule, and it changes month by month, and it's really hard to keep track of. So I think working within the healthcare system, it's just being aware of what are the laws in your state pertaining to how much can somebody have on them. Can we, physicians can't legally prescribe cannabis for a medical condition because that could affect their DEA licensing. So they can make suggestions and recommendations, but they can't legally prescribe. So that's where it's nice to have the nurses come in. Nurses' role is education. So, if a physician is recommending, then they can't get all that information that they need from their physician. First of all, a doctor's visit doesn't allow the time for education. You have 10 to 15 minutes. A lot of doctors, really, when they went to medical school, the endocannabinoid system wasn't even addressed. Now it's changing. It's being taught in medical schools. So nurses who are trained in the endocannabinoid system can now talk to the patients and give them personal education on, this is how your body works. This is how it works within your body. These are all the different routes that you can take it. And there's different ratios of CBD to THC that would be appropriate for your condition versus someone else's condition. There's different routes to take it that would be more appropriate for you, and some that are not. We don't really recommend smoking it. I mean, people do often prefer to smoke it, but that can be hard on the lungs. So there's multiple ways that you can take it that are much better for your body, and that in a lot of cases, it's viewed as a supplement, something that you take daily. Let's say CBD is a really hot topic here in the US. It's considered a daily supplement. It's something that you take to enhance your own internal cannabinoid system that may be running a little on low. So you top it up with some CBD that can help with anxiety and digestion, sleep issues, inflammation, a variety of things. But the fact that it's been a Schedule 1 for so long means that scientists and physicians are not legally allowed to study it without permission from the government. And the government supply of cannabis to the people who are doing the research is a really substandard strain that they're given. It's often moldy and dried out and not really reflecting what is actually in the mainstream that people are using. So when somebody finally gets their grant or their permission from the government they have to use the government issued cannabis, and it's not even worth studying because it's just moldy and poor quality. So that's the hard part. Studies just can't properly be done.
Yeah. Okay. That's, of course, a little bit on the sad side, to be fair. Can you teach us a little bit more about the difference between THC and CBD?
Sure. So THC is considered the cannabinoid that affects your brain, that makes you high.
And for those of you who like the big words, tetrahydrocannabidiol, okay?
Yeah.
THC, big words. We make them up as we go to really make them time breakers, okay?
And
so
then
THC, it's the good stuff if you want to get high. So, and I say the good stuff. So, but as you alluded to, there's so many more. So CBD.
Yes. So there's several, like there's literally hundreds of various cannabinoids, and they're just starting to discover there's CBD, CBG, CBN, CBC. And so the THC, it mostly has an affinity for the receptors in your brain and your central nervous system. And yeah, it can make you high, but it can also affect your pain and how your pain receptors are firing. It can help with inflammation. They're still doing a lot of studies on that. And then the CBD also, there are some receptors in the brain, but for CBD, it mostly has affinity for a lot of the receptors in the rest of the body. And so there's CB1 receptors and CB2 receptors. So THC will combine with both, and CBD is more into the CB2 receptors. And they work together, and that's why it's when they're trying to create medications, they're trying to isolate just one of the cannabinoids, when actually all of the cannabinoids work better together. Just like any herbal medicine, you extract it and you've lost some of the healing properties. So in addition to the THC and all the CBD and CBG and all those different cannabinoids, they don't have a smell. But everybody knows that pot, cannabis, has a distinct odor. And that usually comes from all those other plant compounds called terpenes. And terpenes have their own medical benefits. So when you combine the terpenes and the cannabinoids together, that's where you get your full, what they call as the entourage effect, which creates a lot of the healing ability. So terpenes are things like linalool. If you think of lavender has linalool. There's limonene, which is the citrusy smell. There's alpha-pinene. There's beta-caryophyllene. There's all of these different things that they're now starting to study, all these terpenes, and find that they have their own benefits, which enhance the effects of the THC and the CBD. So when we ingest the plant in its whole form, whether you're smoking it, vaping it, cooking brownies with it, using a tincture, those things combined are what create the best effect, and that you need to take a lot smaller dose if you have the combined effect of those things. And that it's just enhancing what your body already produces, and sometimes you just don't have enough of it and you need to supplement with it. And you just have to find the right therapeutic range, and that if you supplement too much and you're taking a little too much THC, you might get the dry eyes, the nausea, if you take too much, paranoia, restlessness. But typically, if you get in the range, you're going to be relaxed, less pain, sleep better, less inflammation. So it's just finding that right range that's just right for you.
And that's really so important to realize how many different compounds there are, and that we in the medical field only just start to scratch the surface of what these various things actually do. So that's important when it comes to the use of the whole plant. And it's important to realize that growing conditions of plants will affect how much they produce of which substances. So therefore it is so difficult to predict what a particular strain of or particular crop will do. So this is not easy. You're talking multiple variables that determine the outcome, how either leafy cannabis or homemade tinctures, etc., how they will affect you, your pain, your mood, all the other things. It's
Mm-hmm.
very hard. So there is an art to that particular dealing with it, no doubt. There is a science, but as you alluded to, that science is only just getting there.
That's why lab testing, it's really important, even for CBD products that you can buy over the counter.
Mm.
It's really important that it's lab tested to look for pesticides, molds, and to see what your cannabinoid profile is so that you know what terpenes are in it, which terpenes work best for you, what the ratios of THC and CBD are, so that if things are lab tested, that gives us more standardization, because the names of cannabis can vary from dispensary to dispensary. And there's some really interesting names that they have for them. But if you, as a patient, know that you need this certain ratio with this many milligrams and this type of terpene, you can go in with, your list of what you need, and they can match you to the right plant. So that's where you can get a little more precise with your dosing, and what you're doing is, if you know those specific numbers, then it doesn't matter what the plant is called. It's pulling up the lab results and matching it to what you need for your body. And everybody's a little different.
Cool. That's actually quite interesting to realize. I mean, here in New Zealand, please, we have, it has five leaves. Again, that's good. We smoke it, kind of a thing. That's about as much as the testing would go. Of course, we have got different problems here because, for example, in the area in which I work, it's sort of a more a tourist area because we have got all the Maori indigenous culture here, but we've got huge amount of forestry, which means forestry workers, which means sawmills, which means huge machines that basically eat up whole trees like matchsticks and bringing them out. Now, when you are full of cannabis and you play with these machines, chances are things go pear-shaped. So cannabis in the forestry has always been a huge issue. And therefore, it's very clear there's strict rules that if you work with these machines, if you work in a sawmill, if you work as a policeman, as a fireman, etc., you can get drug tested. Pee in the cup, please. And thank you very much. If there is some cannabis in there, then you are toast. So that's a problem. Do all the various cannabis products that you refer to, do they all show up on a urine test?
Yes. And so even there are CBD products that are supposed to be just an isolate of CBD with the legal CBD is 0.3% THC can be in with it, and that's federally legal. Yeah. Some companies will just do an isolate and they'll just have all of the CBD extracted and don't have any THC, and that's how they label their product. But when I talk to my clients who get routine drug screening, I say it all depends on how finely calibrated your lab is that's doing the urine testing, and how they differentiate between CBD or THC. So you could potentially be positive even with a CBD isolate. So it's a risk. The companies say that you should be safe, but there's always a disclaimer that you may not pass a urine drug screen, even though you have zero THC that you've consumed. There is a chance that the urine drug screen might not reflect that. So you have to be careful with that. But I'm just curious. So you mentioned that people who in that profession in forestry have to have a urine drug screening. So how would that be any different for somebody who is using pain medications, opioids, or who drinks alcohol? So are they having the same screening, or are they just selecting only the people who use cannabis? Because to me, anybody who's doing a dangerous job, it should be, if you're concerned about their welfare, not just picking one component to screen for.
Please, of course. I could not agree more. The drinking culture in New Zealand is absolutely brutal. Okay,
Mm.
it is absolutely normal. As a forestry worker, you do your work, then you go with your mates to a pub or play a game of rugby, and then here you go, down it goes, and that's all normal. Okay, that's absolutely normal. You smash your hands through a glass pane. You punch a hole into either someone or a wall. Hey, that's all cool. That's all cool. It's part of our sport, macho culture. Yeah, about that. So if what you're raising is the issue of the flow-on effects on society as far as different drugs of abuse are concerned. Now, if I get if I get $1 for every fight that happens in a bar or is alcohol related, oh, for Christ's sake, I can stop working. And it's very, very hard to imagine a fight in a coffee shop, okay, where people are consuming recreational marijuana. So please,
they don't get violent with that.
Exactly my point. So
that's
your
the
point,
difference.
Your point
Big
is
difference.
so valid. 100% agreed. And yes, need to do something about the whole culture and the whole abuse. And after all, I think the other figures, whilst we said that 25% of the population are in chronic pain, you also need to say that 25% of the population are chemical addicts. So there is a huge overlap. And that is, of course, the difficult bit for any lawmaker, any doctor, any institution to somehow tease apart who is taking what for what. But I'm in chronic pain. Look, I've had this accident. Of course you're in chronic pain. Yes, no one says that. But what is the marijuana really doing for you? Oh, well, what do you mean? Well, is it changing your pain? Well, no, not really, but I feel so much better with it. Of course, officially it helps their pain. But so it's and then you have got the question, okay, so it doesn't actually do something to your pain, but it makes you feel better. Is that a bad thing? Should we condone it? Should we say, no, sorry, just because you feel better? Nah, therefore it's wrong. So there are so many questions and I don't have the answers. But I think, Anna, it is important that we raise all these aspects, because the moment you talk about marijuana, it becomes such a political and emotional discussion out there where people go onto the barricades and want heads on pitchforks left and right. So it's really, really quite good, therefore, that we give the topic the due diligence. But I could not agree more with you. It's certainly there are quite a number of patients who clearly would do better with medical marijuana and alleviating some of their suffering. If I was to put you into charge of your country now, sorry, Donald, move over.
Oh, gosh.
It's Anna now, okay? Anna. Okay, no, I make you the health czar, okay? I make you the health boss. Okay. So you let someone else run it. But from a health point of view, with your knowledge that you've got right now and your experience and everything, which are the patients that you would actually think should be considering marijuana?
Who do I think is eligible, or who do I think? I think anyone who wants to try it, because we still don't know all of the things that it can help for. I mean, they're still finding Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, autism. They're starting to look at children and autism, seizure disorders, cancer, helping with chemotherapy. So why not give everyone access to make up their own minds, to try it and see, is this helping with my symptoms? Is it giving me better quality of life? Then yes, that should be your own personal decision. Just the fact that anybody can buy alcohol of legal age. We have wine tours, we have craft breweries, and yet people frown upon, and when you're going to ingest alcohol, it's going to alter your mental state. It's going to make you feel more relaxed, more social. You use it for celebration. And then when you look at a plant that's been used by humans for thousands of years, that has numerous benefits, if it makes you feel a little happy or a little relaxed, we should view it the same as we do with alcohol. There's a potential for anything to be abused, a potential for anything to become addictive, depending on your life situation and your personality and your genetics. But everybody should have equal access to the plant. It shouldn't be so expensive. Because if it can help with somebody for better quality of life, they should be able to grow their own. They should be able to find a plant that really resonates with them, create their own medicine. I love herbs and I love growing herbs. And I think there's great culinary herbs and there's benefit in eating, ingesting herbs and using herbs. And as humanity has evolved, so have the herbs along with us. But I think prohibition of the cannabis plant has altered it, just like prohibition with alcohol. The more we prohibit, the stronger we're going to make it, because we have to get the biggest bang for our buck. We're taking a risk. Excuse me. So I think with the cannabis plant, it used to be more balanced with the THC and the CBD. So I need to explain a little bit about those two. So the THC can give you a mental high. The CBD counteracts that and brings you back into balance. So if you have equal amounts of THC and CBD, you're going to get health benefits without getting the head high. So when you get people who are now no longer allowed to openly grow it, they're going to grow stronger and more potent. They're going to get the biggest bang for their buck. And so now we're looking at varietals that are grown that are 20 to maybe even 30% THC with maybe half to 0.1% CBD. So there's no more balance in the plant. It's just all about the high, which is not the original intent of using it. That's not why humans have cultivated it and carried it across continents. It's been more of a balance. It does give you a little happy, a little buzz, but we've just morphed it into something that's so heavy in the THC and ignoring all the other cannabinoids that can help us. And I think that by making it more open, things are going to start to revert back into people are realizing, I just want to feel better. I don't want to get high. I want to get healthy. So what kind of plant do I need to consume to feel healthy? I want less of that THC feeling. I want to feel more balanced. And so I think the consumer is going to start to create the demand that the plants are going to change. And I've noticed that going into the dispensary. I recommend a certain ratio for my clients. And when I go into the dispensary, they have all this high THC stuff with, all these rock star kind of, masculine names. I'm like, I'm treating a 65-year-old woman who doesn't want to get high. She wants to get healthy. Do you have this ratio? Do you have this type of tincture? And he'll tell me, oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to order that in. Nobody's really asking for it. I'm like, well, I am. And so is she. So I think he's realizing as I go into the dispensary and talk to him that they're typically sold out. And I talk to my daughter in Canada and she tells me the same thing, that they are always sold out of certain lower ratio tinctures, that they just can't keep them in stock because this is what people are starting to demand. So I think that's going to, if you open up and make it legal, that consumer demand is going to start leaning towards medical, and it will probably, there'll always be the recreational portion there. Everybody wants to escape somehow. You want to have a little fun. Either you drink wine or you smoke weed, whatever. That's, I think as an adult, that's your personal choice. And it's all about moderation and being responsible. But I think if we start looking at more medically and talk about it and understand the balancing of it, that people will be more on board and start demanding a more balanced product, and that they won't be people getting high trying to get healthy. They'll be getting healthy without getting high. So that's my hope. That's what I would do if I were in charge.
I like that. I like that a lot, actually, because there is, I think, there are many, many questions that we haven't yet even asked of cannabis, leave alone any answers that we have got for some of the questions that we have asked. And part of me understands the comments of my colleague yesterday. We, of course, when the announcement came, we had discussions in theater about it. And he said, here we are. We have opened the Pandora's box of alcohol. We have opened the Pandora's box of nicotine and see where that led us. Maybe it's quite good that we don't open another Pandora's box of cannabis, legalizing it. So part of me actually understands that and that kind of conservative fear along these lines. But there is a DJ here said it once really well. In the 70s, we smoked killer weed. And nowadays they smoke weed killer. And I think that actually makes a lot of sense. And killer
That's
weed.
probably true.
Yeah, true. Because it has changed the cannabis varieties that are around nowadays. And
Definitely.
we must say that also the gangs are using cannabis as truly a gateway drug, because certainly here in Rotorua, we had cannabis that was laced with methamphetamine, and other drugs. Exactly. So we have got all that illegal component there. There's a lot of drug running. We have got 9 gangs in our little $100,000 commune here. So it is, there is this huge side, and I would have loved to see that being taken out of the hands of the gangs and made it more available. I would have hoped that we would have maybe had the start of a journey similar to Portugal, where legalizing of all drugs and using the money that was used to address the law enforcement side of drugs, using that for the provision of healthcare services for mental health and for addiction. I mean, it is, you see the benefits that Portugal reaped from it. We have
Definitely.
got that all, and I would have loved to see that in this country. I think it would have been a huge benefit, but it wasn't meant to be.
And that's the thing, is if it's not legal, how are you getting your medicine? And I think a lot of older people are very interested in using cannabis for their aches and pains. And as you get older, your own internal cannabinoid system slows down and gets sluggish. You need to supplement a little bit to help relieve those aches and pains and joint swelling. But yeah, they don't want to go buy it from somebody in a back alley. So I think increasing that consumer confidence that it's in a legal facility, that this product is lab tested, it's labeled, they can walk in the light of day and proudly purchase their medicine without worrying, is it laced with something? Am I going to get gunned down for doing this? Am I going to go to jail? This has opened up more medicine for more people who can use it. And I certainly don't see people in that age group seeking to use it to get high. They just want to get out of bed in the morning and be able to move and do their gardening, take their dog for a walk. So that's where I'm leaning, that, legalizing as restrictive as it can be in some states. And, you have to have a qualifying condition in some states, or you can only have so much at a time in the pricing, but it's a step in the right direction. It's getting us away from that back alley deal of laced things that aren't safe and creating commerce for criminals. And now we're creating wider tax base, putting the money back in. Like Colorado has, really set an example for increased taxes through selling cannabis, has now created all sorts of other different social programs. And I think that's a great thing that Portugal does with legalizing and helping people who have mental health issues. And that's a lot of people who have mental health issues are looking at illicit drugs, such as, all those other things to quell the fire in their head, to feel calm, to feel normal. And a lot of those antipsychotic medications leave you feeling numb, and there's no quality of life, and they don't feel in control. So that's why I think people, look to self-medicate and feel like they have a little bit of control and find that right mix that makes them feel their best. And sometimes they don't always make the best choices in what those right mixes are, but I would hope that legalizing cannabis can give people a little more option to choose to take care of their health and put their health in their own hands and make better choices and safer choices for them too.
Anna, it was wonderful to hear your take on things, and I think we have given the topic all the due diligence that it deserves, but it's lovely to actually hear that positive side coming from you, from someone who sees the relief of suffering on a daily basis with the right products for the right patients, for the right indications, in the right way, supervised and above board. How beautiful is that? because the same
Yes.
patients would have not received any of that in the system, in the previous system. Otherwise, they would have not come to you. It's as simple as that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
As a
no.
nurse, I would have never had this conversation with a client. It would just be like, talk to you. But now I can. That's wonderful. But again, I understand that with anything, there's a bad side. There's, people who use it too early when your brain is still developing as a teenager and as a young adult. There's research saying that this is a really bad time for brain growth and development to be introducing cannabis. Older in life, it's safer to use.
Same with
how
alcohol.
much yeah.
Same with alcohol, though. Sorry for interrupting. We've got that
No,
little bit
okay.
of time delay in our link. So I want to talk, you want to talk. We both. I think, and it's good for you guys, viewers, to know that the same research is there for alcohol. We know that if you drink regularly under the age of 25, the younger you are, the more likely you're going to become an alcoholic. Whilst if they were increase the drinking age to 25, and indeed police it in an appropriate way and make sure that younger people don't drink, then you would see far, far, far less addiction to alcohol than we do see now. So there is actually something to be said about that. But there's so many issues, and I think we've given them a fair chance to be aired. And hopefully here by highlighting the benefits of medicinal marijuana, we have maybe put a balance into the discussion. We have discussed it without the emotions. Whilst we've raised the issues, I think let's take the emotions out of it and let's see quality of life. And so if you are a pain sufferer out there, then please don't accept it the way it is, but always look around. Is that really as good as you can be? And the true answer is most patients that I've met had not had the chance to be truly holistically evaluated and treated. And that had mainly to do with the lack of availability of the support services that I would have ideally liked to have. And the lack of availability of medications or access to certain treatment modalities. Bottom line is just don't take no for an answer. And if someone says that's as good as it's going to be, yeah, chances are no. That is, always have an open mind. And if you are lucky enough that you live in a place like Michigan, then get in touch with Anna or one of her colleagues. You guys have got a whole network of nurse practitioners that are specializing in cannabis, isn't it?
Yeah, there are more and more nurses and physicians being educated all the time and creating whole business models around medical cannabis and education and research. And it's just every day I find a new article, something new to read. It's very exciting, actually. I'm enjoying learning all about it.
It's a new discipline. There are not many new things happening in the field of medicine. So I can see where you're coming from. It is an exciting world out there. If people wanted to ask you questions or if people wanted to get in touch with you, do you have a way that they can do that?
Sure. They can email me at Anna, it's ANNA, at zenergyhq.com. And Zenergy is Z with energy, or I don't know if New Zealand you say Z like they do in Canada.
Yeah, we do.
Z and energy. So yeah,
Perfect.
That's how you can reach me.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. And guys, just look down there in the description of the video and of the podcast. I will have put the link down there. Anna, I was humbled to have you on my show. I'm really, really grateful to get this kind of balanced view and balanced expert input here on a thing where there are a lot of emotions about, but very little knowledge about. So people often, it surprises me how opinionated people can be without actually wanting to know the truth behind it.
Right.
That automatically would lead now into the political discussion, but we will not go there. I wish you all the luck that you deserve over the next week in the United States.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, exactly. But no, Anna, thank you so much for coming onto my show. I really, really appreciated that.
It was an honor. It was great talking with you.
Cool. And you guys out there, look after yourself. Bye.